look at all the FAWSL fixture results that happened in Week 12. There were quite a few interesting matches that went on today. Let's take a look at the results. We'll go in order of when the matches took place. First up in the list, Manchester City, Aston Villa. Manchester City won this game handily by a score of 7-0. I believe the score was 6-0 at the half. So Manchester City, they had a day, which seems to be pretty par for the course. They have been a powerhouse and have just struck down pretty much most of their opponents throughout the season, especially when teams that are, for lack of a better term, weaker than them in competition. So here's who all scored today. Lauren Hemp scored a brace. She scored two. Jill Scott, Georgia Stanway, Ellen White, and Chloe Kelly. So the wealth was definitely shared throughout the match day, which when it's coming from Manchester City, that's no surprise. They have a ton of talent across the board. So good on them today. That certainly helps improve the goal difference. Their goal difference is pretty high. Can't recall what it is off the top of my head, but actually, while we're right here, let's check. I believe I've got the table pulled up. Yep, Manchester City's goal difference is now plus 21, if I'm not mistaken. So, believe it or not, it's still behind one other team. The Arsenal women have a plus 30 goal difference on the season so far, which is incredibly impressive. But that's just what the goal difference is looking like. In that regard, let's move on to the next fixture. Everton and Bristol City took each other on this week. Bristol City has had a really rough go of it this season. Everton haven't been in the greatest form, but Everton shined today and ended up besting Bristol City by a score of 4-0. Izzy Christensen also had a brace. She scored two, along with Simone Miguel and Megan Finnegan. All three of them scored today to combine for 4 goals. Poor Bristol City. I feel so bad for them. Their goal difference with that scoreline today is now down to minus 43, and they've only got 2 points in the table. They're 4 behind Aston Villa, and they have no games in hand. So it's not really looking good for Bristol City. I don't think unless they start stringing together a couple wins, I don't know if there's a ton of hope for them this season, because at the end of the day, as long as you beat other teams by points, that's all that really matters. So there's a chance. Within 4, that's doable. I hope for the best for them going forward, of course. Next up, pretty dry game. Birmingham City, Brighton and Hove Albion. That score ended 0-0, so it was a draw. Each team goes away with a point, which, hey, points are points. Take them wherever you can get them. Moving on, Reading FC against Arsenal. That was actually a pretty interesting matchup. I had Arsenal winning this one. I believe it was a score of like 4-0. I was wrong. Reading FC really showed up today. They played a strong match. They looked threatening. They held Arsenal at bay, and they managed to walk away with a point today, which was well deserved. Lauren Bruton scored for Reading, I believe, in the first 5 minutes off of a set piece. So good on her. And then Vivian Miedema equalized more towards the end of the first half. Jill Roord had a very convincing header toward goal, which was saved by the keeper, but Vivian Miedema was there for the rebound, hence bringing her to 12 goals on the season. I was very surprised today to see Reading bounce back so aggressively since they lost last week to Chelsea 5-0. It was quite a beating, so I expected Arsenal to do the same, considering that Arsenal is also at the top of the table and they've performing really well this season. But Reading, full credit to them. They adjusted. They obviously made some changes to their tactics and to their game, and it worked out for them, and they walked away with a point. So good on Reading. Now they can keep their position in the table as it stands today. Moving on to the last 2 fixtures of the day, Chelsea, Man United. That was my personal match of the week. I'm a little biased in that decision, but when you've got the top 2 teams in the league, neither of which have lost, that makes for a really interesting matchup, and a really interesting matchup it was. Pernille Harder opened the scoring earlier on in the game. She had a goal today, as well as Fran Kirby. She capitalized off of a United mistake and gave them the lead later on in the game in the second half. For United, on the flip side of that coin, Lauren James, Casey Stoney made the sub, put on Lauren James for Kristen Press, and just shortly after, Lauren James scored, which equalized at the time, but like I said, shortly after, Fran Kirby ended up capitalizing on a mistake and taking the lead. So that was a really fun match to watch. That's actually going to be one of our main topics today, so I'll get into that in a little while. One important thing to note in the lineup today that Casey Stoney put out, Tobin Heath was not in the starting 11, which is really puzzling since she's arguably been the WSL Player of the Year so far this season. But it was revealed after the game that Tobin picked up an injury midweek and was unavailable for the match today. However, if you watch the game really closely, you will have seen Tobin sporting some really awesome Air Jordans. That was kind of the key indicator for me that there was no way she was going in, because that was well into the second half, but also that her taste in shoes is phenomenal. They were just really cool shoes, and I think a lot of people would agree, but I digress. So as of today, with that scoreline, Chelsea are at the top of the table on goal difference, tied in points with Man United, but also have a game in hand, so that's important to keep in mind. All right, so the last fixture of the weekend, West Ham United and Tottenham Hotspur. Tottenham Hotspur come away with their third win in a row. They've been on an impressive run of form since being second bottom in the table just about a month or two ago. So good on them. Lucy Quinn was the difference today and scored for Tottenham Hotspur. That now puts them in seventh. They climbed up an additional spot in the table. The really cool thing about Tottenham, too, is they have a game. Actually, I'm sorry, they have 2 games in hand. So should be really exciting. We'll see what they do going down the stretch. Just occurred to me in my January. Okay, good. I thought I was looking at the wrong FAWSL table. I thought this was an old one, but we're all good there. All right, guys. So with that third segment down and out of the way,